Hi, it's Paula from Paula Quilting. Welcome back to my channel. Some of you are aware that I moved recently and I've been promising making a video about how I've set up my sewing room and how I kind of do certain things, how I store the stuff. And honestly, I just wanted to clear up this room a little bit more to show it off to you. However, I realized that if I'm gonna wait for that moment, you will never see that video because my room is never organized or clean. So instead, I will apply a technique called spot cleaning. So when I'm gonna be moving around, I make sure it looks, like something I can present to you, but obviously you don't have to see all other corners. Now, I will start that storage type of stuff and things like that from kind of very beginning, how my scraps coming into my sewing room. Most of them are coming from the scrap store, some of those scraps coming also from people who donate some stuff to me, and then I buy random stuff in the charity shop. So I don't buy actual new fabrics. It's very rare if I do. It has to be really specific project if I do buy something new. That's maybe like 1% of what I've got in this room. Everything else is sourced from the scrap stores because they've got lots of cool stuff there. So I just been to one of the scrap stores recently. I'm saying one because where I moved now, I've got one just across the road, which is like, Christmas every week where I go there. But I just show you what I brought this time and how that scrap will kind of travel throughout my room and where it will end up and how I will store it. So I thought that would be the best way of showing you. So bag like this, like a simple shopping bag, cost me £2, and then I've added some bits and pieces from like price stuff, and all in all, what you see now is I've paid for all of it £4. So I think it's a bargain, but you see. So when you go to the scraps, there are buckets where you can just go through the stuff and just pack what you like, and there will be some other stuff which were priced, and you can, they're obviously priced very, very low, and you can pack those ones as well. So let's see what I managed to source this time. So first of all, I pull out some patterns, one for like a drapey cardigan and one for the applique kind of vest. I've got a few of the patterns like this, but I always like to try something new, so I'm not sure it will be part of the tutorials, but you never know, you might see it sometime in the future. But let's get to the fabric itself. Okay, some just piece of solid, and if it's quite big piece like that, I will not cut it immediately. It's more than a fat quarter. So if it's something like a fat quarter or more, I will just fold it and put it in one of my buckets, and I will show you those buckets later. But I do two tests on every fabric I do, and that's because most of the time, because it's bits and pieces and leftovers, I do not know what is the make of that fabric often where I'm taking it. So I don't mind blended fabrics for my work. The only thing I don't like is if the fabric shrink with the iron in different kind of levels. Because imagine you have a, let's say, 4-patch done, you're taking it to the iron, you iron it, and one of those 4 patches parts shrink more than others. That's not what you want. So I always use a iron to iron at least, if I'm not cutting the fabric immediately, I would just at least a little bit iron that fabric just to see how it reacts with the very hot iron. If there's no shrinkage, good to go. I know it's a cotton, a very high kind of quality cotton blend. I have no issues. If it shrinks a lot, then I don't use it very often in my quilting. I use it in other projects. So it still stays with me, it's just going somewhere else. Or if it's really bad, like really bad, which it doesn't, it doesn't come very often, I will just put it back in the bag and take it back to the scrap store because I will have a use for it, somebody else can. The other test I do immediately when I kind of go through my fabrics is if I pick some red fabric. I'm not sure if I've got any here, but let's imagine this was like proper red fabric. Now again, red fabrics can be tricky because they may bleed, and obviously you don't want to mix it up with and because I work with scraps, obviously I might have just a small piece somewhere in between other pieces, so I need to make sure that what I've got here is actually not going to damage larger projects. So what I do, you can do it with water, but I use a starch because I usually starch my fabric when I'm ironing it. I will spray it a little bit, and then I will find a kind of leftover of sort of like a white or very light fabric, and I will put it on top of it, and I will just leave it. I go do other stuff, and then I'll come back after a minute, and if that fabric have not taken that color out, it's good to go. If that fabric did take color out, that means that fabric I cannot use in my quilting. And it happens, not very often, but it does happen. I don't know if you can see here on my ironing board, but I've got some spots of red fabric here because I was doing that test and it was really bleeding very badly. So it's straight away have been put, you know, for another project where I know it's not gonna damage anything. Okay, so let's get to the good stuff now. Let's see what I've got in my bag. So all of those smaller pieces I would iron straight away and go through my kind of cutting scrap system. Let's just quickly go through what I've got here. Oh, lovely stuff this time around. Sometimes you don't even know, because when it's bundled like this, you don't even know what's inside. So when you open those things, then you've got a very nice surprise. Oh, I love those ones. That is very cool. I'm so glad I'm living very close now by, because it's you know, sometimes it was a challenge to go where I was living before, but now it's literally I can go for 15 minutes, pack my bag and go go home. I can even walk there. It's just amazing. I also picked up this is a quilted piece. Somebody was perhaps training some free motion quilting. Not all of it is quilted, just some of the parts. So oh, and it came with a fabric itself. That's lovely. So that definitely goes to my scrap basket. But this piece itself, it doesn't look bad actually. I could finish it off, bind it, and perhaps donate it. I don't have kind of those colors in my house, but I could easily donate it. Or, because not all of it is yet quilted, I can still repurpose some of the fabrics. As you can see, that's a quite big nice piece here. This is not quilted at all, I could just cut out. So there are options here. I can repurpose it and use for something else. What else do we have here? Some nice background fabric, flower lid. This is quite nice. Oh, look at this big piece. That's even more than a fat quarter. Look, humongous piece of fabric. So with those ones, I'm actually using a backing of the comic books to fold it, and again I will show you later how they look. So if it's a fat quarter or maybe some irregular piece of fabric, I will just fold it, put it on the tray, but bigger pieces like this, they will be folded and put on the cardboard. Some nice flowery stuff. You got some smaller pieces, some solids. You know, I've been doing recently quite a lot of tutorials with solids, so that's where all of those solids coming from. I also picked up a roll of the tape for the curtains or nets. Again, we moved to the new house, there will be need for that. That cost me €0, so that's, you know, it's a great place, that scrap store. People very often ask me on the in the comments, where is it? I'm in UK, and just search it online, because they are all over the country and they are charity based organizations, so you may find them in some random places. The one I'm going often to is on the farm. Literally there's two like a big containers where they open twice a week on the farm, and they've got all of those lovely stuff there. So as you can see, random stuff, but pretty nice mix, and that's how my, you know, a scrappy quilt get alive because I'm just mixing all of those. This is brand new. This is brand new fat quarter. Very nice fabric. So people like myself, you know, if you decide the scrappy is not for you, you can pack a bag, take it to the scrap store, and somebody else will be happy to have it. You might like to discharge and just don't want to waste your time to try to sell, or you don't have anyone to give it to, then the scrap store will take it as well and sell it for a few pounds to somebody like me who will make, you know, good use out of it. So yes, as you can see, quite a lot of nice stuff. And what will basically happen now, I will iron all of the smaller pieces and I will take it to my cutting board to show you how I'm going to kind of process my scraps and where they will go. Here I've got a strip of 3 jelly rolls sewn together. This is probably going to another bucket called random blocks. Got a bucket like this as well. So yeah, it will take me a little bit of time to iron it all, so I won't be recording that part, but I will meet you back at my cutting table and I will show you how I process those scraps. Right, so I've sorted out my fabric, I've ironed what I wanted to iron for cutting, so I can show you quickly kind of the full yield of the trip to the scrap store. So I've got some fat quarters or somewhat fat quarters here, quite a few of those, nice colors, some nice solids, some nice kind of background fabric. So that will go to one of my boxes, which I will show you in a bit. I also pull out the batch of batiks. I've been collecting batiks for a while now. I'm not gonna be cutting it, I just put it all aside and it will go to the other storage where I keep all of the batik scraps. So I will show you that storage as well in a bit. So, and I also had this batch of cotton canvas type of fabric, so not something I will use for the quilt, but it's good for some projects like back of the cushion covers or pouches or things like that. I've got separate box for those scraps as well. Not a lot this time, normally I've got more, but that's fine. I'm not kind of, you know, fussed about those ones. I've put one fabric on the back of the comic book carton board, as I showed you before, so that will go to the just the, you know, on the shelves. I don't have a lot of fabrics like that because as you can see, most of the stuff I'm getting are the scraps. And then scraps are being cut straight away, and those are the sizes I'm cutting my stuff to. So I've got 6.5 inch squares, 4.5 inch squares, 2.5 inch squares, 2.5 by 4.5, 2.5 by 6.5, and then some pieces I will just leave longer 2.5 inch strips. I won't chunk it into smaller pieces, just leave it long. Now you could think, why am I cutting straight away if I don't know how I will use it? The thing with scraps is, I don't know how about you, I can only talk about myself, is if I have just left it like this in a bag, chance of me going to that bag and finding something I need would be slim to none, because in that bag I will never know what I've got there, and I'm going to scrap store very often, and I just wouldn't know what I've got and where. So the time I would have spent looking for the stuff, I would rather spend sewing stuff. So that's the reason. 2, they take less space if they are designed like this, and 3, I like design with the magic numbers principle, and I'm ready. Whenever I need to have a quick quilt, I've got my chunks ready. Now, I do not overthink how I cut those scraps. I usually go with the biggest possible kind of shape. So here I can cut 6.5 inch square. If I later need this to be 4.5 inch square for whatever reasons, then I can make smaller from bigger. I cannot make bigger from smaller unless I stitch 2 or 3 pieces together, which I'm fine with it as well. That's why I don't mind cutting them into those shapes, because they just, like I said, they're ready to go, and whenever I feel like sewing, I can just take the box, take another box maybe with solid, mix and match, and I'm ready to roll. So that will be the next step of kind of processing those scraps, cutting them. First I try, depending how big pile I've got, basically I try to kind of divide them into piles. Okay, 6.5 inch, 4.5 inch strips only, and then I'm just trying to kind of speed work those, because I've got them divided into those groups. While after I've cut all my shapes, obviously I will have some wonky strips left over, so I've got box for those. I've got kind of wider or longer pieces of the fabric, so those are these ones, and those are going on the adding tape. So anything what is wonky but it's about 4 inch ish going to this bucket, anything what is wonky and longer goes to another bucket. So again, when I want to design something with strings or adding tape, I know where I'm going and I know where I'm gonna find those pieces. The third type of leftovers are just random pieces, and they are going to the crumb boxes, which I will show you as well. Okay, so as you can see, I've got quite a bit to do today. I will crack on with that, and then I will show you all of those boxes and storage systems I've mentioned. Okay, so I finished cutting my fabric. I've got my 6.5 inch squares, 4.5 inch squares, 2.5 inch squares, some rectangles, some longer strips over there, fabrics I showed you before, bits and pieces. So this is all what came from that one bag. There are also some crumb pieces, and the string ones, the wonky string ones, I was just packing straight to the box with wonky strings, and I was going along, so I don't have it here, but there was quite a few as well. So let me now just show you one by one what the storage for each of group of that fabric looks like. So first I've got all of those trays for pre-cuts, which is the squares and rectangles. And as you can see, I labeled them. So I've got few groups here. I've got flowers, others, kids, cramps, shirts, holidays, African, and solids. In cramps, if I make cramp and cut them to 6.5 inch squares, they're ready to go. They come into this box. And then I've got in others, anything that doesn't kind of fit into those other categories go to the others. Now I did use before those trays to hold my 2.5 and 1.5 inch strips. However, I changed the system for those, and I will tell you why. Because, you know, when you cut them, they are nice and flat, you put them in the boxes, all good. But once you start looking for something, basically that's what happens. And then I was ending up in re-ironing a lot of stuff. So as I was working through my different projects, as soon as the tray was getting empty, I kind of did not add the strips back in. I just repurposed it, and it works differently. And I will show you in a minute how I keep my strips now. So all of those squares and rectangles will go inside those trays, and they're ready to go. I can obviously mix the types in between, or I can just work with one, but they're all ready to go, and that's the key thing for me. If I feel like go and do some sewing, I don't have to wait. I've got everything ready for some nice magic number quilts. Fat quarter type of fabrics, again, I do keep them in the same trays, and they are again kind of named in some sort of order how I want to keep them. And I've got 9 of those trays. So I've got solids, I've got stripes, I've got kids, I've got flowers, I've got bold design fabrics, and few others. So, you know, the categories you will have, it will really depend what type of fabrics you like to work with. So it doesn't have to be the same as mine, it can be anything else. I am due to kind of sort out those trays a little bit, because after a move they have mixed up a little bit, but this is what more or less it should, like, you know, nicely folded and sticking out. Those are flowers ones, so only flowers should be here. So all of those fat quarters will end up in those trays. So this is how I keep my strips now, 2.5 and 1.5 inch strips. So I've got a simple rod there hanged on the hook, connected to my Kallax boxes from, you know, Kallax storage from IKEA. Just simple hooks from Amazon, and then here you go. And I'm using paper clips to clip the fabric together. And again, it's easy because you can decide to maybe get them by color, get them by design, get them by obviously the size. So you can sort them anyhow you like, and they don't get wrinkled in my boxes anymore. Also, it's easy to find what I'm looking for. Even if I don't have them sorted in any, you know, type of fabric or whatever, I can just quickly go through and see what I've got here and pick up the batch the one I want to pull out something from, take it out, put it back on. And it's also easy when I'm cutting fabric from scraps to kind of put it back on here as well. I like to avoid rework. Like I said, when I were in the trays, they started very nice at the beginning. After a while, it was just a mess. Now it isn't, so I can straight take it out and straight take it to the sewing. And here is the second rod here, hooked exactly the same way with the same hooks at the top there, hooked to that rod here. And here on the trouser hooks, I keep fabrics I've ironed for whatever reason. So I've ironed, I maybe cut a bit away. And again, I want to avoid the rework, so if it's already ironed, I don't want to iron it again next time. I'm just using those trouser hangers to hang it on, so it's all ready to go next time I need that fabric. It works really well. I mean, it obviously will depend how much space and arrangement you've got, but if you do have a space for something like that, I really do recommend it, because it will save a lot of time when you want to do something. So if you know, if I feel like I need some white fabric, I've got 2 pieces of white already nicely ironed here. It was starched when I did it first time round. I just take it to the cutting board and it's ready to roll with the sewing. This is another type of the storage I'm using, and those are the fabrics which have been separated from everything else for certain reason. For example, I've got my batiks here, because I did tell you I'm collecting batiks. I don't know what I will make from it yet, so I'm not cutting it, I'm not prepping it anyhow. I'm just putting it in one place, so when I've got enough, I can start thinking about the design. I've got some quilt cutouts, I've got some of those shapes when I was doing fake trapunto, and how it works. So there's a hook which is the storage over the door hook. You can have obviously more than one. I only had one, so I used it. This is the strip from the buttons up shirt, which is, you know, one is with the button, one is with the hole. I just put a couple of here. Those bags are doggy poop bags. So because they are good size and they've got handles, I can then, once I put something inside, I can just tie it or put in between that button and the hole and just hook it there. And I also got a holder for the poop bags here. I've got them in my shop, so I had some prototypes. I use that, so it's always ready here if I want to pack something. So it works well. It's quite compact, so if you don't have a lot of space but you have some doors you can use, that might be an idea for you how to use it as well. And I kind of call it a grape system because it looks like a grape. In those small trays here, I'm keeping my smallest bits. So I've got some crumbs per color, kids fabric crumbs, small triangles for adding tape from some of my tutorials, Christmas and African crumbs, white crumbs. So it's kind of the smallest bits are coming in and are divided. And just to show you that crumbs per color, I only got one tray. I don't want more than that. So this one is quite full. That means the blue-green bucket should go in, you know, on my sewing machine very soon to start making some crumbs. Pink is, yeah, almost there. Orange, brownish here, and then reds in another box. So like I said, as soon as one of them is getting, you know, I cannot close the drawer, that means that batch is going to the sewing machine next. And I'll be working through them until I finish, and then either I will cut them into the shapes like I would do with any other fabric, or I will just leave them in the bigger kind of planks of the crumb, because I don't know how I want to use it later. If I want to make a crumb quilt, then I will just do maybe 10.5 inch straight away, but I like to obviously use the crumbs in bigger design, so I will not cut it to the shape until I need it. And the last type of storage I've got are those bigger kind of storage boxes on the shelves like this. They are not, you know, particularly beautiful, but they work really well. And I've got here is my wonky strings, and I've got my sheer fabric strings as well, which I'm working through if I'm working with a muslin background. So they are quite big, and again, if they're getting too full, I'm starting working from them, and that's kind of rule for every box I've got. If one of the type of the fabrics or one type of the designs is getting too full, I'm gonna think about how to design something out of it to get it down. So I just finished designing something with the string, so you can see the string bucket is actually quite not that full anymore. Because I've used up a lot of scraps from this bucket in my tutorials. So that's how it looks with kind of main sections of my storage. I also got on the smaller hooks here something that maybe have come up from the scrap store before, like those squares. They are 3.5 inches, not something I would normally cut my fabric into, but it was there, and until I know how I want to use it, I don't want to trim it. And I've got some half square triangles which I did cut from something else from I was making. They are 3 inches, quite a lot of them. So again, on the paper clip, they're waiting to be used up. And the main type of kind of storage I'm using in my sewing group are the Kallax from IKEA, with the buckets for the bigger pieces, like, you know, the bedding or something I bought for the backing of the quilt. Some UFOs, or let's say a lot of UFOs, a lot of quilts which are just flimsies, they're waiting to be finished off, so I've got a lot of those buckets I need to go through, but that's the main storage. So like I've mentioned, your storage and your systems will really depend what you know, what room you've got, how much space you've got, what you cannot do in the space you've got. But the key message is try to organize yourself. If you organize yourself, the things will take less space, and also the chance for you using them is going to be bigger, because personally I don't like looking for things. I would rather sew than look for something. I just don't have that time. If you have lots of time, that's no problem, you do what you like. For me, I need to be a little bit more organized to make sure I can spend more time on sewing or designing or thinking about designing. My background is in process improvement, so for me it's quite natural to look into the ways how to cut down the waiting times. By waiting times, we're thinking about all of those times where we're actually not doing what we would like to do. So that's me, and that's how kind of everything goes out from me. But like I said, your circumstances might be different, your place may be different, you might have more space, and you just may have more time. So obviously what I just said may not apply to you. Just pick what you like, leave what you don't, and then I hope you will have more time for sewing and more time for watching my tutorials. Thank you very much for joining me today. If there are any questions about anything I just said, please leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to record this type of the video, maybe go into more detail about something you have got questions about. Happy sewing, everyone. Just a quick reminder where you can find me and how you can support my work. You can subscribe to my website to be notified when new tutorials, products or patterns are released. You can find me on my Facebook page, Pola Photo, or you can join my group page, Pola Quilting with Friends, where we all share work made inspired by my tutorials and answer any questions you may have. There is Instagram account called Pola Quilting, and if you like to share something you made based on my tutorials, please tag me using hashtag Pola Quilting with Friends. To support my work, please like, comment and share when you see my posts or tutorials. Let your quilting friends know about this channel and invite them to the group and subscribe to my channel. If you like to contribute extra, you can use super thanks on YouTube or buying me virtual tea, coffee or lunch available on my page. All links are in the description below. I would like to thank you all for all the support so far and letting me grow in what I do. Thank you for joining, thank you for watching, and see you next time.